Today we head out to northern New Jersey for a 2-day trip that was supposed to be a 4-day trip. We left so early in the morning, it was 5 a.m. and I ran into this majestical fog that made driving slightly more irritating on the way there. The plan was to hit up a lot of places up in Newton, Sussex area. The first stop on our way would be to drive into Bryant and stop at abandoned train tunnel. It's kind of an interesting spot. I was here a couple years back in 2019 and was actually able to walk through the tunnel, but the landscape looked amazing, especially with the fog rolling in from the morning. The only downside here would be that they would have started construction on the tunnel to turn it back into the commuter rail, so access was sort of forbidden. So I'm at the walkway to the Roseville Tunnel, and there's a lot of construction equipment out here, so I guess we'll find that out when we get to the other end of this road and get chased off. Now, technically access wasn't strictly forbidden, but it was clear that they didn't want anybody in there, and by the time I actually got out of the area and was taking my final drone B-roll shots, there were construction workers pulling into the site to continue work. So it is kind of what it is. It's still really awesome to see it. I'm glad I took the drone up in the air here. It's really nice. From here, I would actually drive to another interesting stop along the way, the remains of Sickle Pond Road. This entire length of road is like very interesting. This over here is where the farmer's market slash discount slash auction place was in the 2000s. We used to come down here and we bought a lot of stuff at the auction here. We bought, I think, a pocket knife here, probably my first knife. And I probably bought like an Atari joystick, and it's in a location where it's like not the greatest in the world and nobody really wants them to build there because it is residential area to the right. If you continue down this road, you reach the old property of the old Newton Airport. We used to go there for model airplane shows and for just generally hanging out there. One time we met somebody up here and he actually let me sit inside of his ultralight. But in like mid-2000s, PSC&G bought the property to use as a staging area for their power line improvement program. And after they were done, they just left it to rot. There's a couple different companies trying to purchase the property. One to make a junkyard, which the city is no. And the other one is to build 2 giant warehouses with room to spare. I would love to get in here and get more detailed video, but it's private property, and maybe one day I could come back with the drone and fly over or something though. From there we take a quick drive to one of the old train junctions for a location called Over the Garden Wall. This was an interesting stop along the way where there used to be a bridge here and they kind of hastily removed the bridge and just piled it on the side of the road. There's also this, like, probably for like a water tank. Nothing too interesting, however, there was something for me to find here. Here we have the first and probably only geocache of the entire day that we're going to find the entire trip. Over the Garden Wall. I stopped at this really nice picturesque bridge, although I did not do it justice for the pictures. And then we're off to our pretty much final destination, the actual state park. This park is interesting, but it is kind of the oddity of the trip because while there are things to see here, there isn't really much in the park other than a water and some campsites. However, I didn't pick this place because of its amenities. I picked it because of its history. This was actually the first place I ever camped in my life when I was 10 years old. August 6th, 1996. Other things to interest, and at about this intersection back then, we actually got to see our first black bear. The place we're at today is a group campsite at Swartswood State Park. I'm not staying here, but this is the place I stayed 27 years ago. Over here, approximately over here where I'm standing. One of the things I remember is that the girls had a very large canvas tent. It's pretty big. It was probably like a 10-person tent that they put over in the corner here, which is not really intended to be a site anymore. See where that patch of rock is? That's pretty much where my tent was in 1996. After snooping around a bunch on the other side of the road, it was time to drive from the beachhead to the actual campsite and see what I ended up getting with my site. I got my absolutely demolished gazebo. And I'm going to put this up, and I'm not going to film it because you already know how a tent goes up. The tent's up. My plan says I'm supposed to be at the water right now. And I guess that's where we'll go now. At this point in the trip, I'll note that I was already probably 24, nearly 30 hours with no sleep. So I was not going to hang out here for too long. The plan here was to paddle all the way to the beach in Dove Island. However, I was too tired and it was kind of too windy to keep doing that. After playing around on the water for a while, I decided to head back and do a walking tour of the park, seeing what I can see. This picture of the showers and bathhouse probably is completely uninteresting. However, back in the 90s, I remember there being a payphone. Back then, there was no cell phone, so this is how we called home. I found this concrete slab over here, which I would then find the actual wires that were cut flush with the ground. I also remember there being small laundry facilities, which are long since removed, but you can see the remnants of them in this access room. Time to head on back to the site and see what we can do until it gets dark. Alright, so the last time we did this, somebody said they liked us. Watch us cook. Now, I'm not really cooking. Because of the fact that this is only going to be a one-day trip, despite the fact that I packed for like 4 days of food, I'm literally just making mac and cheese and cooking some clam chowder that's in a can. So this is like totally boring. Want to know what's also crazy? Bringing 6 cameras with you and then not really filming anything. This is literally the last scene of the day. It's here. I have them ready. That's not a lot of wood. This was actually the first campsite I ever stayed at, actually. When I was 10 years old, our school went for an overnight trip for 2 days. It would be, we would stay across the street at group site C. I was way more interested in, of course, going to the beach and digging than I was camping. I could care less. Our lunches would be pre-made by the school and just sent, and we'd just keep them in the vans. Pretty sure we didn't have a campfire. 97, 96, somewhere between 96 and 99 were like some of the worst drought years ever. There were no campfires allowed, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if my school would have thought that we could safely handle a campfire at 10, because most of us would probably burn the shit out of ourselves. In the end, it wouldn't be too much more than a novelty to say that I stayed here. We changed sites later on in other years, and the place does not offer too much within the bounds of the park. There was a market, and then we'd come back a while I could tell you how we played flashlight tag in the field across from the group campsite, where one of the kids would hide in the sticker bushes and not want to come back to go to sleep at the end of the night and have to get dragged out of the bushes. Or how we would rent rowboats and then go out, but I really was not happy with that and frightened by the whole ordeal of floating on the water at the time. Hey, it's awkwardly the morning, and slept pretty well, and I gotta get this site torn down to head out onto whatever's left of the day. It was decided that I would drive up to the fire tower up by the lake, see what I can see. The walk up to the fire tower took about 1 hour each way, and it was such a rough thing, and I was so keen on just getting to the tower, I didn't even take really any video. All of this was shot with my phone. I didn't even take the 2 other cameras I brought with me out the whole time. From there, I would take off to the nearby Stokes State Forest to check out some of the remains of some interesting buildings and other oddities within the park. The area up here was very interesting. I really loved the utilitarian design of this overhanged building. I would love to have a garage just like that. I also drove past these 2 other red mill buildings. Unfortunately, they pretty much served as the park's workshop, so I kind of skipped past them. The last stop of this trip would be this picnic grove on the way out. It had already been about 3:30 in the afternoon, and the ride home would be about 2 hours, so I decided to call it at this point and start to head home. People probably wonder how much effort a trip like this takes to plan out. Here's a typical plan diagram of my trip. Of course, half these things didn't even happen, but this trip was like a month planned in the making, and unfortunately, weather is outside the control when you do things like this.
Loud thunder, heavy rain, thin line between joy and pain. It's a long, strange trip, it's all insane. You ain't never gonna be the same. Living life through the night, thin line of the lightning strike. It's sometimes the only light. When the moon is tucked away, the camera captures all the things that make us turn from what we see. It's always rolling, it don't stop rolling. I haven't slept in 3 damn days.